Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can see in the picture today, let's start the story of part 3 of a story where Issei become the true silver dragon god emperor of fate. When Issei finished explaining what happened to him, everyone was shocked. They honestly couldn't believe that Issei was about to be tossed aside just because he was weak and perverted. Despite Vali maintaining his stoic personality deep down, he truly did feel horrible for his rivals since, even though he wouldn't admit, but a small part of him was jealous of Issei since he always thought he was being raised in a happy family like he always deeply desired. But now finding out that his parents all these years didn't want him because of his perversion when they could have done something about it earlier, and that the only reason that they were able to stand him for this long was just because he was related to them. This also made him look back on his life in which maybe he was the lucky one, since at least both his grandfather and father were at least honest that they despised his existence. But for Issei, he lied to ride in front of his face since he was a child, and finding out that every time they said they loved him was also a lie no doubt would leave a deeper and more permanent scar on both his mind and heart. Even though his rival looked calm and collected, he could see that he still held a good amount of resentment towards his parents, and his former mistress, and her peerage. But he just hoped that this wouldn't hold him back from becoming stronger as both his rival and as a person. Meanwhile, both Azazel and Zenovia were both disappointed and furious at Rias and the others, with Zenovia being on the more furious side since she couldn't believe Asia would do something like that to Issei, and after everything he did protect her from her when they first met. The blue-haired knight couldn't help but feel like even more of a fool since she apologized to a backstabber, which is worse than a witch. But Azazel was more disappointed than anything the red-headed heiress, since she had completely forgotten that Issei had just practically entered the supernatural world and wasn't given any real form of training to help either his base stats or his sacred gear. He knew that there were some devils out there who would forcibly reincarnate those with sacred gears and force them to go into balance breakers so that they could do their dirty work and just throw them aside. But he didn't think that someone from the Gremory house, who are known to treat their servants like family, would do something like this. No doubt once word gets out of what Rios did, the Gremory family will definitely receive a lot of backlash from both the council and just the underworld in general. If she wanted Issei to become strong fairly quickly, then all she had to do was to contact Sergiches and have him set up a training session with the former Dragon King, Tannen, since everyone knew that the only way to train a dragon was to have another dragon train him. He could imagine of what Sergiches or Rias might think and say if they find out what they were about to do with Issei. He would imagine that she will no doubt lose her position and title as heiress to the House of Gremory for sure, but besides that it was anyone's guess. But one thing was for sure, all of them truly felt sorry for the brown-haired boy, and hoped that they could do something to help him get over this painful and traumatic event that he is about to go through. Azazel, saddened kid, I'm sorry that you had to go through all of this. What they did was unforgivable, because believe me, I imagine that Sergiches wouldn't have allowed this to happen. Issei sighs, serious, don't apologize, Azazel. To be honest, it's not really anyone's fault. Everyone? Confused Zenovia. Confused? What do you mean? It's obvious that no doubt Rias is the cause of all this happening. Serious, yes and no. While I do admit that I hold a lot of resentment towards Rias and the others, in the end, we all need to remember that she is a devil, no matter how you look at it, and as such, she is naturally too greedy for her own good, as well as being manipulative. Even she is essentially a princess, most likely due to Sergex being the current Lucifer as well being the current heiress of the Gremory family. I would imagine she grew up spoiled and essentially had everything handed to her on a silver platter. After going through my memories, I'm pretty sure I can confirm that she is definitely given how spoiled she acts whenever she doesn't get what she wants. Zenovia. Serious, I guess that's true. I mean, I still remember when we were in the pool before Parents' Day, and when Akino senpai got too close to you, she was willing to destroy the entire pool out of spite. Desi nods, exactly, serious, though it does saddens me since I developed a crush on her even before I became a devil, and when I became a member of her peerage, I thought it could be my chance to get close to her and maybe form a possible relationship with her. But in the end she ended up just like Rainer and essentially used me for her own ends, which was to get her out of her arranged marriage with Riser. Sheds a single tear. She never once saw me as a say hi to, just the security that she could use to her heart's content in order to fulfill her own selfish desires. Genuinely makes me wonder about the others like Kiba, Gasper, Asia, and you Zenovia. Zenovia. Curious, what do you mean? Issei. Serious, because think about it, if only Rias only saw me as the security, then what about the others with sacred gears inside of them? I mean, sure, she would help them to an extent, but to include them into her peerage would be another story. For instance, for Kiba, she would have just given him a proper burial given he was about to die. For Gasper, she would have just dropped him off in an orphanage run by the Gremory family, and probably would have just forgotten about him. Then there's Asia, since if Rainer would have gotten away with Twilight, then she would be still dead even with me begging Rias to revive her. Then there's you Zenovia. Zenovia? Confused me? Issei. Nods? Yep, since let's face without Durandal, you're just an ordinary human with, I will admit, exceptional skills in combating devils. But that wouldn't be enough for Rias to consider reincarnating you into her peerage. The fact you were the wielder of one of the most powerful holy swords in the world is what mostly enticed her to accept your offer to become a devil in the first place, since having Durandal on her side would help climb through the rating ranks a lot quicker. Azazel, Serious Issei is right, since from what I've heard from my sources, she has a dream of becoming rating game champion, and given who are the top players in the rating game, it's safe to assume she can't have any potential weak pieces holding her back. Mind, eyes, or any possible pieces that could be a threat to her future standing as rating game champion. Greg. Syria. So you might think the reason why she is kicking you is because she sees you as a threat to her status as a rating game champion. Issei. Mind, serious. Well, it's one of many possibilities since she knows I want to be a high-class devil. So at least subconsciously she figured that if I were to take a great interest in the rating games due to my draconic instincts, then she would no doubt see me as an obstacle, since if I were to get stronger, then facing me would no doubt be extremely difficult to say the least. Sighs. But like I said, it's only speculation at best since it could be possible that she has zero faith in me in becoming stronger. Let us be lucky we got rid of the evil pieces when we did and that she wasn't probably planning on taking away the boosted gear and giving it to someone else. Greg. Eyes narrowed. Well, she would be even a bigger fool if she tried because even some of my other hosts who were almost as weak as you were beings to not be trifled with. And you just proved that even the weakest security is someone to be feared. But still, what you said is not all out of the realm of possibilities since I have had hosts who were essentially forced to work for a certain side only to be tossed aside like yesterday's trash since all they were needed for was the power I give them. Sad, and when you first told me about those nightmares, I was afraid that history had repeated itself in a sense. Smirks. But once again, you made the impossible possible and escaped such a fate. Issei. Mind? Smirks. Why? Of course, there's no way I'm going to let that be the end of my story. No, if I'm going out then I'm doing it on my own terms, which is essentially going down swinging, and that's not before I complete whatever dreams or goals that I have in mind. Greg laughs wholeheartedly. Grins. You truly are Malzeno's reincarnation, given that you are already speaking like a true dragon. It was then Issei's thoughts were interrupted when he heard the voice of Zenovia. But unlike her usual stoic tone, she sounded heartbroken as well as a bit hollow. The brown-haired boy couldn't help but feel saddened for the blue-haired knight, since not only did he reveal of what was about to happen to him, but also revealed the possible fact that in truth, the only reason why she's in Ria's peerage in the place was just because she was in possession of extremely powerful holy sword. The fact that she was still probably reeling from the news about God being dead put her in even more shock than she was before. Zenovia. Sad, and I can't believe it once again I was such a fool. Sheds a tear. Was I so desperate for a purpose that allowed myself to become the thing I despised the most without giving the thought of the only possible reason she would only accept me because I had something she would no doubt exploit? Claps her hands together in prayer. Oh God, even if you are dead, please forgive me for my foolishness. This of course caused an immense headache for the blue-haired knight due to her being a devil. But just before she could shed any more tears, she was pulled into a warm embrace. When she looked up she saw she was in the embrace of Issei, who also had a sad expression on his face. Zenovia. Surprised eyes. Issei. Saddened Zenovia. It's not your fault, Zenovia. Tearing up, but Issei. Saddened you were lost and confused, Almost anyone in your position would have made the same mistakes that you made upon finding out the truth that God was dead. You are not the exception. In truth, it makes you stronger than everyone else, Zenovia. Surprised, they say. Serious, while others might have just given up on life or easily sell their souls and live their lives in senseless pleasure which will lead them to despair. But you persevere and keep on going, and no matter how small you still kept your faith in someone who has probably been gone since before you were born. But in the end you're only human, and as such you are destined to make mistakes time and time again. There is no such thing as a perfect being in this or any other world. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that even though you made a mistake, the question is, are you going to learn from this mistake and do better next time? Everyone was indeed taken back with the serious and wise words that Issei spoke, with the only exceptions being Ddraig and Albion, since they knew that Malzeno was not only the strongest dragon that ever lived, but also the wisest of beings in the entire universe, to the points that even gods from all over would come to him for advice of what they must do. Even though the brown-haired boy may not have noticed, but in a way he was already starting to act like Malzeno, but slowly. All that everyone knew was that this was not the same perverted brown-haired boy that they knew or read upon. No, the person in front of them was almost completely different, as if Issei was still Issei, but at the same time he was being influenced by someone else entirely, or better yet, becoming someone else entirely. But nevertheless, Zenovia thought about what Issei said and looked him in the eyes and gave him an answer. Zenovia. Serious. I honestly can't say for sure, but I will say that I won't make the same mistake a second time. Issei smiles softly. Good answer, since it truly takes time in order to learn the mistakes. But realizing and understanding the mistake you made is indeed the first step in order to learn what you've done and move forward. Once you finish this journey of yours, you will become the best version of yourself in every way. Zenovia smiled softly while nodding. Right, thank you, Issei. Azazel. Serious? Well, I do admit this is nice and all that, but I just got to know, what are you gonna now, kid? I mean, now knowing you're about to be betrayed by the people who you thought loved and cared for you. This, of course, made the brown-haired boy think about what the old Governor-General of the Fallen Angels said, since he was right now, knowing he was about to be betrayed by the people who he thought loved and cared for him. He could still remember the vision as clear as day, as both his parents and Rias, with the members of her peerage, with the exception of Kiba and Gasper, ridicule, and essentially mocked him for being too weak and perverted to be in their family. On one side, Issei was boiling with an undying rage to make those betraying him pay for what they will do to him. But he couldn't let his anger cloud his judgment, since even though he was now resilient to becoming an evil dragon, didn't mean he still could become one in the future if pushed over the edge. But if he was truly being honest, he was scared of enduring the same bashing and humiliation in real life. Issei knew if he went home to face everyone, then no matter what, a small part of him will no doubt be broken. But when looking back on the vision when he saw his other self, it made him wonder why he was there if he knew what was going to happen to him. A few reasons came up in his head, but none of them really clicked. But one thing was for sure, that his betrayal was going to happen really soon, and there was no way to avoid it. But right now the brown-haired boy wanted some time to think on what his next plan was before anything, since he first still needed to find the sons of Sparta, as well as get to Remnant. Issei sighs. Serious right now, I just want to be alone and think to myself, and what I'm going to do from now on. Can you do that for me, Azazel? Azazel? Serious? Sure, kid. But since you're not part of the devil faction anymore, since you're no longer a devil, how about joining me in the Gregory? Smirks while pointing at himself. With my help and training, I can help you make Rias and the others regret what they said about you and help you become as strong as Vala. Vala? Smirks. Now that will be interesting for sure. Zenovia. Sedinum. Issei raises an eyebrow. Won't you get in trouble with the devils when they find out you have the Sekiryuutei joining you guys? Especially since the Leaders' Summit is in a few days. Azazel smirks. Don't worry. I'll take whatever complaints they have for me, and besides, technically, they threw you away thanks to Rias, so in truth, they can't talk whatsoever. I would hope you would accompany me along with Vali to the Leaders' Summit. Issei, thinking serious. Well, I guess that's as good as any option, I guess, in order to help my future goals. But sadly, I don't think I will entirely join the Gregory, And it's not because of what Raynor did to me, but in truth, I need to go somewhere in order to find answers about Malzeno, and something tells me I need to do it alone. But if I can, I will accompany you to the Leaders' Summit, since no doubt, Circeus-sama will no doubt want answers as well as his sister's pawn pieces back? Zenovia. Surprised you're keeping the pawn pieces, I say, serious only until I see Sergiches again. Right now are they far too dangerous to be left alone with Rias just in case she plans to or already has people in mind to replace me. Saddened I see that makes sense. Azazel, curious, and may I know where this place is exactly? Basie. Stares at Azazel. Closes his eyes. Sorry, but I can't tell you because not even I know what this place is entirely or even if it exists. All I know is that when I last spoke to Malzeno, he told me to go to this place in order to find the answers that I seek. But right now I just want to be alone if that's okay with you, Azazel. Azazel's serious. Very well then, but first, rummages through his pockets. Take this. It was then Azazel took out a silver bracelet and handed it to Issei, who looked on it in curiosity. Issei. Curious, what is this? Azazel. Serious, you're naturally releasing a lot of power, to which as soon as I release this barrier, not only your soon-to-be mistress, but every supernatural being will be coming here. This bracelet here will help suppress your power to the point of what you were before. Issei, serious while examining the bracelet I see, puts on armband. Thanks, Azazel. Azazel. Serious. Well, we'll be on our way when you're ready. You know where to find me. Okay? Issei. Serious. Got it. Ollie. Smirks. I truly hope you get stronger. Hi, you know, I would imagine it's just to say, right? Well, whatever the case may be, you just made our rivalry a lot more exciting, and I do hope you don't disappoint. Issei, mind? Sweat drops. Does this guy have any other hobby besides wanting to fight me? Issei, serious while waving him off. Volley. Smirks. Humph. But that both Volley and Azazel left in a magic circle, leaving both Issei and Zenovia. All the while the barrier that was hiding them disappeared. Since they were alone, the blue-haired boy decided to ask what the brown-haired boy was actually going to do now, knowing he will soon have nowhere else to go. Zenovia. Concern Ice, are you really okay? Issei. Stoic. I truly want to tell you that I'm fine, but saddened with a single going down his face. But in truth, I'm honestly terrified. I know what's about to happen to me cannot be undone, but a part of me wishes that there truly was another way to avoid all of this. Serious, but there isn't, and as such all I can do is face my fears head-on and move forward. Zenovia. Eyes widen and surprise eyes. You can't mean. Issei. Nods him. Yes. I need to face them, because if I don't, I will never truly be able to start moving forward with my life. Turns to Zenovia. You should go home. Zenovia, forget about what you just saw and heard. Continue your life as Ria's servant for the time being and focus on becoming a high class and becoming independent. I don't entirely know about Yuta or Gasper, since they have been with Rias a lot longer than the both of us, but I would like to think they wouldn't have agreed to Rias and Akino's decision, and as such will at least do their best to help you. Zenovia. Serious, no? Essie. Surprised how Zenovia. Zenovia. Serious, I won't go back to Rias, not what after she's about to you. Just like you, she didn't see me as Zenovia, but just as the wielder of Durandal, and if the church did decide to take Durandal back, then she would have never accepted me into her peerage. So that's why I'm going to come with you. Issei. Serious, Zenovia, you can't, or else you will be considered a stray devil, and as such will be hunted down. I know that Rias has essentially in a way betrayed your trust, but you cannot ruin your own life due to being clouded by your own anger and mistrust. Zenovia. Sad, and I know, but I genuinely don't know if I can truly hold my resentment towards Rias after now knowing what she is going to do to you, as well as thinking of what she probably views me. Plus, if I were to go back and everyone found out what happened to you and I'm with Rias, then everyone might have misgivings about me even though I wasn't a part of it. Especially if Irina were to find out, then no doubt she will hold some resentment towards me if she believes that I'm somehow part of it. Issei. Serious, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be like that. I'm sure that if you can take a minute to explain to her and... Zenovia. Sad and knows she won't not when it comes to you, Issei. Confused, what do you mean? Zenovia. Sad and while looking away, I don't know if I should say. Serious Zenovia, if you're that worried that Irina is going to irrationally hate you and I can somehow prevent that, then please you have to tell me. Concern please Zenovia, let me help you not further destroy your friendship with Irina than it already has. Zenovia. Sad and whom sighs sadly, alright, the truth is that she is madly in love with you. Issei. Shocked what? Zenovia. Nods at, and it's true, apparently she's been in love with you ever since you two were kids. Smiles. Sadly, when we first met she would never stop talking about you, she would always go on about how much of a kind and caring person you were, and despite your pervertedness, she still wanted to be with you. To be fair, I really didn't care too much since I was always focused on the mission we were given by the church, which was to be instruments of God's will. But over time, you could say a small part of me became curious about who you were. I became curious of who this boy was that made Irina get up every day and pray with a smile on her face, hoping she would one day see him again. It's funny, whenever she came back to the Vatican after visiting her parents in England, she would always complain to me on how she had to turn down a bunch of guys and how some of them wouldn't take a hint, and that she was saving herself for you. Saddened, but the day that we were assigned to retrieve the fragments of Excalibur, and she found out you became a devil, she completely shut down. Of course, they never gave us the details on how you became a devil. But now, knowing what I know now, I'm thankful that she didn't know, or else she would never truly be able to fully return to the person she once was. She became in denial since she didn't want to believe that the boy that she loved would willingly become a devil, since the last thing she ever wanted was to be forced to kill you just because you were on opposite sides. But despite the fact that I could see that she could never let go of her love for you, no matter how hard she tried, you literally burrowed your way into her heart. If anything bad were to happen to you, then she would no doubt go into a frenzy and probably not listen to reason. Smiles sadly, after meeting and getting to know you, I genuinely can honestly say I'm starting to see why it's not because you possess the power of the security, but the fact you're a good person who just naturally radiates an aura that is so warm and protective that no one lets go of. Honestly, I don't why Rias and the others would ever want to let that go. Now this completely shocked the brown-haired boy, since he had no idea that his childhood friend held such feelings for him, and for so long. This made him wonder if he knew that Irina was a girl in the beginning, and she never left for England in the first place. He figured that they would have probably been dating at this point in his life. He also wouldn't have gone on that with Rainer as well, never joining Rias and her peerage. Since she was an exorcist, then he also would have been trained by an exorcist, since he was the security, and would no doubt draw on a lot of attention. Although he also wouldn't convert to their beliefs due to him being a pervert and wanting to become the harem king, and would only work with them for the most part. But as long as he had Irina at his side, then everything would work out for him in the end. This also made him look back on his childhood with Irina and how truly happy he was with her, since before meeting Matuzda and Motohama, he was alone and didn't have anyone really to talk to or spend time with. This also wanted him to confront Irina about these feelings they have for one another, and if possible, try to see if they could hopefully start a relationship with one another. But right now, he has to put that in the back of his mind, since right now, not only did have to comfort Zenobia, but also figure out his plan of action after confronting Rias and his parents. I say, serious Zenobia, I know you made me think that Irina may not listen to you, but I believe if you sit down and talk to her, she will understand. Believe me, I know Irina. She may be too upbeat and energetic to listen to reason, but she is not closed-minded to the point she won't listen to the other side of someone's story. Zenovia. Sad, and I know, but people tend to be extremely irrational when it comes to someone they care about or what they want to preserve. I mean, look at me. When I told the higher-ups in the church about God's death, they didn't give me a chance to defend myself and blindly said that my faith was weak. So what's to say that Irina won't act the same way when she finds out that Rias and your parents kicked you out of their lives for being too weak or perverted? Issei, serious. Well, how about we confront her together? Zenovia. Surprised Issei. Serious, I mean, you literally just told me that I'm essentially her kryptonite, right? So I'm sure if I'm with you then she will be willing to listen to you, right? Zenovia sniffles, thank you, Hugs Issei tightly. Thank you, Issei. Knowing everything, Irina is the only real friend that I have left, and I don't want to lose her for something I didn't do. Issei smiles softly while stroking Zenovia's hair. It's okay, Zenovia. I promise you that everything between you and Irina will be fine. Stoic, well, this is definitely interesting. Issei Zenovia. Startled, it was then both Issei and Zenovia looked over to see a cute young girl with long black hair down to her hips and gray eyes. Her ears differ from a normal human's as they have pointed tips, although her long black hair makes this feature difficult to notice. Her dark gray eyes have reptilian slitted pupils. Her attire consists of a black Gothic Lolita fashion, agilely standing right in front of them as she was there the entire time. Both Issei and Zenobia's instincts were screaming at them to not anger or disrespect this person in front of them or else pay the price dearly. But at the same time Issei couldn't help but feel some sort of familiarity upon seeing the young girl, as if he had met before, but couldn't put his finger on it. All the while the girl in question was doing her best to not smile, since she was told that date to not reveal the relationship between her and Malzeno, but was indeed happy that what was actually her older brother being reborn. It was then a green gem appeared on Issei's left hand and out spoke Ddraig. Ddraig. Curious, what are you doing here, Office? Shocked, that's Office as in the dragon god of infinity. Ddraig. Serious, the very same and one of the top strongest beings in existence, far exceeding the biblical god. Office. Smiles slightly. Hello, Drake, it's truly been a while, hasn't it? Looks to Issei. I see you also have returned Malzeno-san. Issei. Surprised you know Malzeno? Office. Nods. Yes. He was a very good friend of mine. Greg. Serious, then you surely must know how he died, because I didn't know anyone, not even Great Red himself, wouldn't have been able to actually kill him. Office. Stoic, I do. Issei. Curious, then can you tell us, because when I spoke to him he didn't leave me with very many answers. Office. Mind. Sad, and I can't tell him. If I do, then he will no doubt become obsessed and paranoid in order to try and defeat it. But now that Onii-chan has finally decided to awaken fully, then I must do what I can in order to help him to be ready for his fated battle. Hopefully with Ddraig's help, he might be able to finish it once and for all. The Office. Stoic. If Malzeno's and didn't tell you, then it is not my place to tell you, and knowing him, he probably wanted you to find out for yourself. Issei. Sighs in annoyance. I see. Then I still need to go to Remnant then, Zenovia. Confused. Remnant. What is that? Issei. Serious. I don't know exactly, but Malzeno said that if I wanted answers that I would need to travel to Remnant. But the problem is I don't even have a place either in the human world or in the supernatural with that name. Office. Stoic. That is because it does not exist in this universe. Issei. Zenovia. Confused. Issei. Confused? What do you mean it doesn't exist in our universe? The Office. Stoic. Remnant is another universe somewhat parallel to our own, but different at the same time. Malzeno would often travel there for odd reasons he would not say, but he told me stories about the life there and how humans became strong without the use of sacred gears or special bloodlines, and he foresaw how that their technology would far superior than to the humans here, due no gods interfering with them, as well as their determination to survive, although overall their world compared to ours it is very weak. But Malzeno believed that they had great potential to rival our world if given time and training. Issei. Shock. So the multiverse exists. How does no one know this? Office. Stoic. A lot of beings do know about the existence of other universes, but before Malzeno died, he made sure that none of them would go to those universes or vice versa. Zenovia. Confused. What do you mean? Office. Stoic. My home. The dimensional gap is the gap between the worlds, which is heaven, earth, and the underworld, but it also serves as the nexus or gap between alternate universes. But Malzeno feared that gods and demons alike would get too ambitious or cocky and try to expand their influence or conquer said universes, since it would cause unimaginable chaos, especially if said universes that were stronger than ours were to invade. As such, Malzeno casted a forbidden spell around our universe to which no one could enter or leave our universe without permission, as a way to protect everyone in the world from foreign threats. Issei. Serious, I see, I guess that does make sense. But why though? I thought Malzeno's only concern was to protect the reverse side of the world. Office. Nods. Not true. Issei? Confused Office. Stoic. While it is true that Malzeno's sole duty is to protect the reverse side of the world, he is actually the grand protector of this entire universe. Issei Zenovia. Shocked what? Office. Stoic, it's true, he earned that title due to his immense kindness and nobility. Almost all of the races of the world, including gods and devils alike, respected him for that. As such, he was considered this universe's grand protector since he loved this world so much. But out of all the races in this world, his favorite race were surprisingly humans, since they always kept on making and discovering new things that seemed interesting to him. That was the main reason why I left my home, since I was curious as to why he liked this so much and how it was interesting. This immensely shocked the brown-haired boy. Sure, he could handle being the reincarnation of an extremely powerful dragon god, but the fact he was now supposed to be this so-called grand protector of his entire universe was a bit too much for him to handle. It was then he put his down and took a breath, trying to process that new bit of information which concerned Zenovia a bit. Zenovia, concern Ice. Are you okay? I say. Breath. Serious, yeah. Just need a minute to process all of this is all. Greg. Serious. Yeah, probably bad timing given what you are about to experience, and all that. The Office. Curious, what are you talking about, Greg? Greg? Serious, my partner is about to be betrayed by the people who he thought loved and cared for him because was considered too weak and perverted to be a member of their family. As such, he is about to head to his former home so that he could confront them in hopes he could move forward. Even though Office didn't show it, she was inwardly angry for what was about to happen to her older brother's reincarnation, since to her Malzeno was essentially everything. Ever since she was born, Malzeno had been the one raising her along with Great Red, and even though they never got along, they both loved and admired their big brother, and would do anything for him. So even though Issei was not entirely the older brother, she once knew he was still her older brother in some shape or form, and as such would want to do anything to protect him. A large part of her truly wanted to obliterate the people causing her older brother so much pain, but she knew that if Issei was anything like her older brother, then he would not allow it to happen, and simply say that they need to learn and accept whatever consequences that their decisions and hope that they learn from it. It was then her thoughts on the matter were interrupted when she spoke again after collecting himself. Issei. Serious Office. The Office. Curious, yes, Issei. Serious, I just want to go back to Drake's question and ask simply why you are here. Office. Stoic, to help you, of course. Issei. Curious, why would you want to help me? Office. Stoic, because before Malzeno was killed he asked me for a favor, and that favor was to help his reincarnation to become stronger in any way I can. Bess. Serious, I see. In that case, can you get me into Remnant? The Office. Nods. I sadly cannot, even though the spell that Malzeno placed on the universe has weakened a bit. The only beings who could freely enter and leave this universe are only Malzeno and Baccarat. They say, curious, then can this Bacca read he? Office. Eyes wide and no. Everyone? Surprised, everyone was definitely taken back how the dragon god of infinity reacted when about suggesting to ask the dragon of dreams. The one who was most surprised was Drake, since for as long as he has known Arthas, she has always been completely void of emotion, so seeing this definitely caught the legendary dragon off guard. Upon seeing their reactions, Arthas calmed herself down and returned to her normal stoic expression. The Office. Stoic, Baccarat won't help you since he will have no reason to do so in the first place. If anything, he might erase your existence for bothering him. Issei. Thinking, yeah, you're right. To be honest, I forgot that Malzeno told me that Great Red might come after me since he is no longer the only true dragon in the universe anymore. So yeah, you're right. If I do try to ask him, then no doubt it would result in a fight that I would no doubt lose or even be killed. Office. Mind. Serious. Good. Ani-san at least did somewhat warn him about that. Eyes narrowed. I won't let you kill him, Baccarat, not when we have a chance to get him back. Issei. Serious, well, in that case, can you help find the sons of Sparta? Malzeno said that they would help me to become stronger, but I sadly don't know where they are. Zenovia. Shocked eyes, you know the legend of Sparta. Issei nods in a way. Last night I had this dream where I saw his sons Dante and Virgil, fighting what seemed to be a giant tree of some sort, in which they were stopped by Virgil's son Nero. That's when Ddraig told me about the legend of Sparta and about his sons. The office, mind? Syria. So he doesn't know what happened to them, smiles softly. It seems as always on Essen is always a few steps ahead of us, and no doubt saw this coming, hence why he asked me to help with his current reincarnation. The office. Stoic, I will help find the sons of Sparta. Issei, surprised you will. The office. Nods. Issei smiles softly. Thank you, office. Looks towards Zenovia. Well, Zenovia, you should probably head back home and remember what we talked about. Pretend that this never happened and work as fast and hard as you can into becoming a high-class devil. Zenovia. Serious while holding on to Issei's arm. No. Issei. Serious, Zenovia, you know you can't come with me or else you'll be considered a stray devil. I'm mostly safe because I'm no longer a part of Rias' peerage anymore, but you are a different story. Zenovia. Holds arm tighter. I don't care. I don't know about Hyoudou or Gasper, but I don't care if it even takes me a month, let alone a century, to become a high-class devil. I won't be able to stand being next to the people who in the end only saw us as tools. Plus you even said to yourself that we need to be together in order to prove my innocence towards Irina. Issei, mind? Sweat drops. Why do I feel like she took it the wrong way when I said that we'll be together when we confront Irina? I say. Serious looks, Zenovia. I appreciate your loyalty towards me and all that, but the fact of the matter is that as long you have that evil piece inside of you, you'll be hunted down, since it would be considered betraying your master. I know you want to have kids and all that, but having kids while on the run is not the way anyone should be raising a kid. The office. Stoic, there is a possible way to remove her evil piece. They say, Zenovia. Surprised, Zenovia. Surprised there is. The office. Nods, whom with Virgil's sword Yamato, which has the power to separate man from devil, it is possible for it to safely remove her evil piece. It also could be your way to get to Remnant, since it is possibly the only object in our universe that can possibly pierce through the veil within the dimensional gap in order to help you travel to a different universe. This indeed both amazed and shocked the two teens, since they had no idea that there was such an item that could be used to travel between universes at will, and it was in the hands of them all figured to be the most powerful demons in the universe. This also made Issei think about his plan of action of what he will do after confronting Rias and his parents, since from what he saw in his dream, as well as what Ddraig has told him, Virgil was definitely no pushover by a long shot and would not help him, let alone hand over the Yamato by a long shot, in which he might had to fight him and prove his worth to gain his help. The which will not be easy, since he remembered what his partner told on how he was able to practically instantly kill one of his previous hosts, and could probably by now is already stronger than Dragon Prime. But the brown-haired boy couldn't give up so easily, since not only could he help Zenovia get rid of her evil pieces, but also get to Remnant, because he truly wanted to know more about Malzeno, and this supposed threat he needs to be ready to face. Issei, serious, well, in that case there's a change in plans. Looks at Zenovia. Looks like you'll be coming with me after all, Zenovia. Zenovia. Hopeful, really. Issei nods. Who looks at Office. Office, is it possible for you to help cover Zenovia's energy signature until I can get the evil piece off of her? The Office. Nods yes. Basie, serious, well, in that case before we head to my soon-to-be former home, we need to make a quick pit stop. Zenovia, curious, why is that? Issei, grim, I need a cigarette. Scene change. Near the Hyoudou residence. 1 hour later. After leaving the park, Issei, Zenovia, and Office went to the local supermarket so that Issei could buy himself a pack of cigarettes, but sadly Issei was not old enough to buy such an item, hence, Office used a hypnotizing spell on the store clerk to allow Issei to buy the pack of cigarettes. The brown-haired boy did feel bad about allowing Office to use such a spell on a regular human, since in a way he felt like he was using her, which was something he did not want to do. especially since every time he looked at her he couldn't help but just see her as a child. Even though he knew that this little girl was indeed eons older than him, he still felt it was unjustifiable for what he allowed her to do. When Issei placed the cigarette into his mouth and lit it up with the same fire spell that Ddraig taught him, he took in a deep breath, and once he breathed out a small puff of smoke was let out. Issei, curious, so what does it taste like? Shrugged shoulders. Well, I guess it's better than drinking my problems away. Zenovia. Concerned ice. Is it really okay for you to be smoking? I mean, I know that your body is no longer human, but starting a habit of smoking cannot be that good for you. I say serious. I know Zenovia and I appreciate your concern. Believe me, I do, but in the last hour my whole world has essentially come crumbling down to the point I don't know if I'll be able to fully recover from it. I'm about to go face to face with the people who essentially caused it, and top of the fact I'm currently trying my best to stop myself from releasing all of these pent-up emotions from going out of control, and it's especially hard since I'm a dragon now. Zenovia. Sad and while deeply concerned, I know, but I'm just worried about you is all. Issei smiles softly. Thank you, Zenovia, but hey, at least I'm not drinking my problems away, right? I mean, if I was, then no doubt I would have done something extremely stupid which I would definitely regret. Shakes pack of cigarettes. At least with these I'm a bit more level-headed with my decision-making and least likely to do something stupid and regretful in the long run. Brins like an idiot. Plus I have to admit this does make me look kind of a badass, don't you think? Zenovia, mind, smiles softly. At least in his darkest of hours, he could always find some light to help endure the darkness. I can now truly see why you fell so hard for him, Irina, because I think I might be doing so as well and for real this time around. Zenovia smiles softly. Well, at least when it comes to picking your poison, you're at least picking the one that will get you in less trouble down the line, so to speak. Sweat drops kind of. Although Issei was somewhat smiling despite about to be betrayed by his friends and family, beneath that smile, he was actually still greatly terrified, and not just from about to happen. But in fact it was a memory he replayed recently. That memory was the last words that his dark self told him before he sealed him away in his evil pieces. Flashback. Inside Issei's soul, there stood Issei Hyoudou, or now officially just Issei at this point, completely bloody, and his clothes tattered, which revealed his scars that he earned throughout his battle against his dark self. On his left hand was the boosted gear with the blade of the legendary dragon's slaying sword Ascalon sticking out. It was a long and draining battle that felt like it lasted for weeks. He truly did underestimate his dark self, since even with the legendary dragon slayer sword at his side, he still proved to be a challenge. But despite all of that, both of them couldn't help but laugh at their predicament, since it essentially proved the old saying that at the end of the day, you are your own worst enemy. The brown-haired boy was successful, sealing away a good portion of the dark draconic energy, which was his dark self, into the 7 out of the 8 evil pieces that it took to reincarnate him. Currently, Issei was in the process of sealing his dark self into his last pawn piece, but the thing was that his dark self was now no longer taking a human form. After sealing a good portion of its power into the 4th pawn piece, it changed shape to medium-sized dragon similar to Malzeno, but different and darker. It was now covered with dark black scales covering its body, along with a deep dark crimson feather-like substance on its neck, chest, and front legs that pulsated with power. Its wings, while being dull gray when looked at from above, have a red underside. The wing membrane connects separately to the wing fingers, and each wing possesses a single giant talon. There is also a pair of smaller fins, similar in coloration to the wings at the base of its tail. 3 of the fingers on its front legs end in a curved giant claw. It has 2 large golden horns, as well as frills extending from both sides of its neck that resemble a cow. Its tail ends in 3 large movable prongs that can be used to grab small prey. It can cover its body with its wings like a cape. When he first saw it, he couldn't help but be terrified, since this was what he was going to turn into if he let his dark self had his way with him. But as the battle continued, he shook away those fears, since he needed to defeat this monster he essentially created inside himself, and it was his responsibility to take it out for good. Issei. Serious. While breathing heavily, it seems that I won. Dark Issei. Smirks. It would seem so. Issei. Serious. I am truly sorry that it had to end like this. I truly wish that there was a better way. Dark Issei chuckles darkly. You truly think that this is truly over? Issei, eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? Dark Issei smirks darkly. It's like you said when we started our battle, I am also Issei Hyoudou, and as such, I won't let something like this hold me down, at least not for long. Issei, eyes narrowed him. Dark Issei smirks darkly. You may have beaten me this time, but I will be back in 10 times stronger than before, so you had better be ready because the next time we meet, grins darkly, there will be only one true Issei. But that being said, the dark version of Issei began to be sealed inside the evil piece, leaving a greatly concerned Issei already knowing deep down that his dark self was telling the truth before finally succumbing to fatigue. Flashback end. After replaying those words in his head, Issei looked down on his school bag to the box he received from Azazel that kept his corrupted evil pieces with of both curiosity and concern. Issei mind? Serious, just what the hell are you possibly planning? Meanwhile, in Issei's soul, currently we see Ddraig exploring the depths of his current soul, while he, the mighty red dragon, did enjoy flying through the skies of the exact replica of his birthplace. There was another reason why he was searching. That was to find the source of the power that was supposedly sealed inside his current when he was born. When Issei told Ddraig that he supposedly had more power sealed away deep within him, he became curious, since it must have been an extremely crafty seal to the point that not even he could find it within his very own host. After almost an hour of searching, the legendary Welsh dragon had finally found the source of the supposed new power that was now unsealed. Greg, serious? I found you. When Greg landed on the ground, what he saw in front of was a large giant red crystal with tints of emerald green inside that was half his size and was beaming with draconic energy. But when Greg got closer to inspect the crystal, he became both shocked and confused about the energy signature that this crystal radiated. Greg, eyes narrowed. This is impossible. How does my partner have a dragon magic core? I mean, sure, he is the reincarnation of Malzeno as well as being my host, but still, doesn't he have another dragon magic core? If this energy that I'm reading is true, then it's mine, but that's completely impossible since, as he is my current host, I should be essentially his magic core, so to speak, and I haven't given anyone my blessing since. Eyes widen in realization. Oh, crap, Issei is my great-grandson. Smiles happily. Wow. Congrats, Ddraig, on being a grandpa. Greg, curious, smirks. I'm honestly surprised that you of all people would be the one to technically settle down to have a kid, let alone a grandchild. Greg, serious. I'm honestly surprised to see you both here. Alsha Belzard. The person known as Alsha was a beautiful woman with long wavy blonde hair, which is decorated with a head accessory, as well as light green eyes. She wears a light purple dress. The second person known as Belzard was a buff, handsome man with green hair and pink eyes. He is fashionably dressed as he wears a black noble uniform which has a red cape attached to it. Belzard smirks. Ah, Ddraig, and here we thought you'd be happy to see us again. Greg, serious, why are you two here? Belzard smiles. Why, of course we became curious about your new host. Belzard smirks. Even you have to admit that not only was he able to prevent himself from being consumed by the curse of the Juggernaut Drive, but also completely avoiding turning himself into an evil dragon is no short of a miracle. So, like Alsha said, we became curious since this boy could be the new strongest security in existence. Alsha smiles. We thought if possible we can train and help him grow stronger. Smiles seductively. Plus, after watching him for a while, on top of him getting his new look, I have to admit he is pretty cute. Greg rolls eyes in annoyance. Oh brother. Back with Issei. Currently we see Issei, Zenovia and Office standing in front of the Hyoudou residence. Office of course helped cover Zenovia's presence since no one would notice that she was there, to which thankfully Issei asked the Dragon God of Infinity to do so earlier since he could sense everyone with the exception of Hyoudou and Gasper inside. This, of course, made the brown-haired boy tense up a bit since the time had finally come to confront those who would betray him and toss him aside like yesterday's trash. But he knew deep down that if he truly wanted to start moving forward with his life and become someone more, he needed to do this. It was then he turned his attention to both Zenovia and Office, to which he explains to the two girls on what he must do while he confronts everyone. Issei. Serious. Okay. Well, I'll go confront everyone. I need you two to sneak into my room and grab some things for me. The Office. Nods. Okay. Zenovia. Curious, but why? Issei. Serious, because it's pretty obvious that after tonight I won't be coming back here again. Grim, as well as the fact tonight the boy known as Issei Hyoudou will die. Serious, but even so there are some things that I still want to take with me, since you could say they are extremely special to me. Zenovia nods. Alright. I understand. So what do you need me to get? I say, serious. Underneath my desk there is a false wall that I made sure that not even my parents were able to find. Behind that false are three things. The first one is a laptop that I got as gift from Azazel from the few times he was my contract. The second is a black notebook which contains some very special words to me, and the last item is a necklace that I got when I was kid. If anything, that necklace should be top priority. Zenovia, curious, what's so special about the necklace? I say, serious, it's hard to explain, to be honest, since I got it when I was a kid from a couple who knew my mother, and when I told them about my dreams about being a hero of justice, they gave me the necklace saying that it would give me all the power I need to become a hero of justice. Saddened, but when I returned home that night and my mother saw me with the necklace, she became absolutely furious at me, saying that I shouldn't have taken something from strangers and that I needed to get rid of it. But I couldn't, since they asked me to promise to always take care of it, and I couldn't break my promise, so I hid it away and made sure my mother wouldn't find it. It's just I couldn't explain it. Every time I held it, I had this feeling of satisfaction and comfort while holding it. Smiles sadly, I truly felt like I would always be safe if I wore it. Plus, the gem on it was a beautiful deep crimson red, which made it even more beautiful and more of a reason to keep it. Zenovia smiles softly. I see. Well, I will definitely make sure that it is the first thing I grab. Issei smiles softly. Thank you. Once you two get those two things, just come back here and wait for me to come out serious. This shouldn't take too long. It was then Zenovia went up to Issei and gave the brown-haired boy a huge hug while giving him a kiss on the cheek, which definitely caught Issei by surprise. But what the blue-haired girl said next did help him a confidence boost to endure what he was about to face. Zenovia smiles softly. Remember, Issei, you're not alone anymore. Issei smiles softly. Thank you, Zenovia. But that said, both Zenovia and Office flew up to the balcony of the Hyoudou residence, with Zenovia using her devil wings and Office just casually floating towards the top. It was then Issei hesitantly walked towards the front door of his soon-to-be former home. The poor boy was shaking like a leaf as he was hesitant, trying to reach for the doorknob. But it was then a familiar voice spoke into Issei's mind to help give him the final bit of confidence he needed to face his fears. Greg. Serious. Remember, those people are not your friends and family anymore. At this point they are just strangers to you. They say, mind, saddened strangers with faces that I know all too well. It still doesn't make it any worse. Greg. Serious. I know, partner, and I'm afraid this might be one of many trials you'll have to endure if you truly want to move forward with your new life. Smiles softly, but I have the utmost confidence that you'll make it out alive. I just want you to know that if anything happens, that you were honestly the best host that ever had, and just like with the blue-haired, I would stick by you through the gates of hell themselves. I say, mind. Smiles softly. Thank you, Ddraig. Knowing that I have both you and Zenovia at my side makes me a bit more confident in myself. Just for that I'll survive this what is about to happen, and I promise that I'll train my ass to the point that I even surpass all your previous hosts, and even you someday. The supernatural world won't know what hit them when the newest heavenly dragon comes knocking. Ddraig roars in delight. That's the spirit, partner. You definitely are the reincarnation of the original true dragon of dragons. Let nothing stop you from becoming the true star you were meant to become. I say, mind. Smirks. Let's do this, Greg. Greg grins. Right. Greg, mind. Smiles fondly. Humph. So this is what it's like to have a grandson, or a great-grandson at the very least. I can't help but feel a sense of pride, and not because he is my host or he is Malzeno's reincarnation, but something deeper, like akin to a proud family member who knows their young ones will make a huge impact on the world. They say you will no doubt make huge changes in the world, since you will help bring back something that this world has long since lost hope. So rise, young hatchling, rise up to return to your shining glorious existence, and bring hope to a new day. But Issei's resolve still, thanks to Ddraig. Issei opened the door to his house to confront what's about to happen. Issei put on a non-caring expression which, after receiving his little pep talk, he honestly felt inside as well, since in a way this has already happened to him before, and he didn't really care what those backstabbers had to say to him. It was then Issei walked towards the dining room to see the exact same people as he did in his vision: Rias and the rest of the orc, except for Gasper and Kiba and his parents. Once Issei's presence was known, everyone barely spared a glance at him, to which none of them even noticed the changes that he had gone through when becoming a dragon, thanks to the bracelet that Azazel gave him. Rias then began to speak in a cold and neutral tone. Rias, cold to say I've decided to kick you out of my peerage. Well, I do thank you for saving me from that marriage from Riser. The fact of the matter is that you are far too weak. You had to use holy items in order to defeat Rias, which were questionable, and bad rumors have already begun towards both me and my family. I honestly would have thought you had changed after that, but I was wrong. The fight with Kokabiel was essentially a wake-up call telling me that no matter what you do, you cannot change and that you will always be a weak pervert. I do hope you'll understand my decision in the long run. Mind. Sighs. Ah shit, here we go again. Meanwhile, with Zenovia and Office. Currently Zenovia and Office were up in room, collecting the things that wanted to take with him on his new journey. Office for the most part was genuinely on how the reincarnation of her older brother lived, and was a bit taken back by all of the perverted items that her older brother had. The infinite dragon god honestly did not know how to take in this information. She knew that her anti-son could be a very carefree dragon at times, but to think his current reincarnation was this interested in the opposite sex was new. Then again, when Ophis thought about it, her brother has never once had a mate of his own, despite having a multitude of females from both dragons and other races alike, wanting to be with him, but rejected every last one of them. This of course made her even more curious of what her brother's reincarnation was truly like as a person, and what path he would take. Zenovia on her part found the false wall that Issei spoke of that was underneath his desk, and found the items that he spoke, though she was indeed curious on why he would place something like a laptop behind a false wall. At first, she thought it was to hide another one of his super secret porn stash that he might have downloaded, but quickly shook that thought out of her head, since it didn't make sense, since Issei was never ashamed of perversion and wouldn't hide it well. So she figured that the laptop contained something else that Issei didn't want to talk about but hoped he would let her in on it. But when she found the necklace, she was indeed in awe of the beauty and craftsmanship of the necklace. It had a long silver chain, and attached to it was a deep crimson ruby that was extremely mesmerizing. But both the blue-haired knight and the dragon god noticed something about the necklace which they didn't think was possible. Zenovia. Serious, this gem has magical energy stored inside of it. Were the people that gave Ice this necklace mages or devils? Office, mind. Curious, this magical energy is familiar. Ah, I see now, it makes sense. So on ESN's reincarnation is related to them. I must admit he definitely chose an interesting person to be his reincarnation this time around. But it was then both girls' thoughts were interrupted when they heard Ria's voice from downstairs due to their enhanced hearing. Ria's muffled, cold to say I've decided to kick you out of my peerage. Well, I do thank you for saving me from that marriage from Riser. The fact of the matter is that you are far too weak. You had to use holy items in order to defeat Riser, which were questionable, and bad rumors have already begun towards both me and my family. I honestly would have thought you had changed after that, but I was wrong. The fight with Kokabiel was essentially a wake-up call telling me that no matter what you do, you cannot change, and that you will always be a weak pervert. I do hope you'll understand my decision in the long run. It was then both of them heard as clear as day how everyone was berating Issei for being so weak and perverted. The blue-haired girl was extremely furious at Asia for betraying Issei when he stood up for her when she was willing to kill Asia on the spot for becoming a devil. It truly made her believe that she was right all along about Asia being a witch. The office, on the other hand, while maintaining her emotionlessness expression was in truth seething in rage for how they were treating her older brother, the only person in all of existence that she truly cared for, and now some lowly humans and devils were mocking him as if he was some kind of lesser being. It truly took all of her self-control to make sure her power didn't run amok and cause irreparable damage to the town of Kwa. Back with Issei, while his so-called friends, family were talking down on him, Issei was just casually chatting with Ddraig of what they should possibly after they leave her, and what form training Issei should focus on, so that he could not only improve his strength, but also learn more about his aura and how to control it. Although he was surprised to find out two of his strongest hosts appeared in order to help him train to become stronger, he was indeed grateful that his senpais, so to speak, were willing help him, since he remembered how Ddraig told him that a majority of his previous hosts only saw him as a tool to be used, and that was it. But as for his aura was a different matter, since Ddraig told him that every dragon's aura was different, and such requires different approaches on how to master and control it, which Issei will no doubt have to figure out that part on his own. This both puzzled and concerned Issei, since if what the legendary dragon was true, then he couldn't brute force his way into mastering his aura like how Ddraig did when he unlocked boost and transfer. He thought of possibly asking Ophis, since it seemed that she and Malzeno were close, so that she might know the abilities that the legendary dragon had when he was alive. Both Issei and Ddraig also began strategizing on how to possibly confront Virgil and convince him to let him use the Yamato to not only help remove Zenovia evil piece, but also help open a rift leading them to Remnant. From what Ddraig told the brown-haired boy, Virgil was definitely not to be trifled with by any means, and that his skills with the sword are light years ahead of both Hyoudou and most likely his sword master combined. That even with Ascalon, it wouldn't match to a true demon of his caliber, and he would be lucky to even get one hit due his godlike speed. He then mentioned how his previous was killed by Virgil, in which he used a technique utilizing Yamato's space-cutting properties to attack and slice his opponents down even from a distance, which was essentially impossible to predict where the attack would come from until it was too late. The brown-haired boy had to admit the odds were very much stacked against him, since he was going up against the son of the strongest demon that ever existed, and has years to hone and perfect his abilities to the absolute max. All the while, he hasn't gotten used to his new draconic body as well as what new abilities it may have, as well as not even being considered a novice sword user. On top of the fact that he hasn't even barely scratched the surface of mastering the boosted gear, let alone achieved balance breaker. Even if he were to use that new ability that he used during his spar with Hyoudou, it would only help him for so long. No, Issei knew deep down it would take something more than a miracle to convince someone like Virgil to help him. This will essentially be a battle of wills. As betraying continued to go on, Issei turned his eyes towards the door, only to see a mirage of his former self with the same confused and heartbroken expression on his face. And just like last time they locked eyes, and Issei, giving him the same message as last time. Knowing that it was time to end this worthless banter, he opened his mouth to begin to speak. He spoke in a cold and uncaring tone that would send even the deadliest of killers shiver. Issei, sighs in annoyance. Are you all done with your pointless ranting? I'm practically falling asleep here. Everyone? Shocked it was then everyone finally took a minute to look at Issei and were shocked that he was completely different. His face was sharper, his eyes were now crimson red, and a part of his hair became a white-silver color. But he still radiated a minuscule aura like he always does. But the only person that felt something was off was Kaneko, because looking closely it felt like her soon-to-be senpai was hiding something, but couldn't tell if it was her imagination or not. Kaneko, mind? Curious. Issei senpai feels stronger, like if he somehow became a lot stronger, but it is hiding it, but I can't tell if he truly is masking it. Issei, serious, giving the fact that all of you finally shut the fuck up. I can finally say my piece and get the fuck out in this den of backstabbers. Everyone in the room was beyond shocked on how Issei was acting. They expected him to panic and be confused on why he was getting kicked out in not only Rias' peerage, but also his own home. Rias probably had the most shocked expression out of everyone, since she could tell that this was not the same perverted boy that she revived and knew this entire time. No, who she saw was a completely different person. Rias? Shocked eyes. Just what happened to you? Issei? Cold with his turning into slit. Simple, I got stronger, just like you wanted, but I guess it doesn't matter anymore since all you cared about. Rias? Afraid, eyes narrowed. Honestly, I am completely disappointed in you. I genuinely believed you were different from Rainer, and that you actually cared for me. But in the fact, you became even worse than her in. But you only saw me as the security, and not as a say hi to. But the part that made you worse than Rainer was the fact that you knew what happened to me, but decided to repeat the same thing that she did without any regard on how much trauma it put me. But I bet you never sat down and thought about why I still kept on being a pervert even after being killed by someone who I thought loved me. Rias, nervous, cold. Given your reaction, I guess you didn't. Looks at the rest of her peerage, especially Asia. I guess none of you did. Well, let me put it to you in a way that all of you can understand. Eyes narrowed. Put yourself in my situation. A normal teenage boy who happens to a bit more perverted than others due to his family lineage, glares daggers at Goro. Isn't that right? Oto-san. Goro gulps nervously. Issei. Serious now. Let's say a perverted teenage boy who knew deep down that he would never have a girlfriend, let alone a harem in his entire life, somehow by some miracle gets asked by a beautiful girl that was obviously way out of his league. Now obviously the said was over the moon and believed that God or somebody was giving him a break, in which he took this chance to not screw up this golden opportunity, in which he planned everything out to have the perfect date. He even went as far as sell a good portion of his porn collection to make sure not only pay for everything but also bug his loving parents for extra cash. Vicky Guru looks away him. I say, cold. Now imagine that boy at the end of said date who felt like he was truly in heaven, finds out that the girl who he began to fall for never loved him in the first place, and was in fact here to kill him. As the boy laid there dying in the pool of his blood, what do you think is going through his head? Everyone in the room fell dead silent, since they didn't know how to respond to the brown-haired boy's story, since most of them have never been in his situation, let alone been on a date. Even the two adults had no words. Now whether it was because of guilt, or they didn't care, was unclear, given their now stoic expressions. But nevertheless, Issei continued on with his story to get his point across. Issei, cold hell, that's all he thought about, that his life was completely one hell of a joke. He truly believed that the universe was pulling the cruelest joke on him, when he really didn't do anything wrong to deserve it. Sure, he may have watched porn and tried to peep on girls changing, but did he truly sexually harass them or rape them? Did he murder someone or possibly unknowingly commit some form of evil sin that he was unaware of doing? The boy truly felt like he was cursed to live out the rest of his days forever alone and single, without ever knowing what it would be like to have someone that wasn't family love him on a deep and emotional level. But even though he was revived by a red-haired beauty who he had a crush on for an entire, who turned out to be a devil and now became a part of her family, the boy truly thought this could be his second chance of not only life but also love. But the memories of that night he was killed still played in his mind, non-stop, to the point it would drive him to the point of insanity. The only way to make those memories to somewhat disappear was to pretend that night never existed, in which he went back to his perverted ways just so he could have a wink of sleep. Eyes narrowed. So tell me, everyone, what would have any of you done if you were in that boy's situation or someone like him in that predicament? Once again, the room became dead silent, as no one had any words to say about why he was still a pervert even after being killed by Ryanair, though he did notice how Arias and the rest of her peerage did have slight expressions of guilt, with Asia being the most affected. But unfortunately for Issei, his parents still kept their stoic personality, which inwardly infuriated the brown-haired boy, since it practically showed that his parents never cared about him. All the while, Ddraig was watching and listening carefully unfold, and as his host explained his reasoning for his perversion, he noticed something about his parents, more notably his mother Issei Hyoudou, in which, after finding his dragon magic core inside of him, he could sense the same energy in his mother, but it was a lot smaller, almost to the point it was non-existent, unless one were to actually search for it. Annoyed by the lack of response from everyone, Issei decided to give them the answers to the questions that none of them wanted to say. Greg, mind, eyes narrowed. Now I'm starting to see what's going on. Growls in anger. To think that someone from her lineage would do something so despicable and low is beyond me. Issei. Eyes narrowed. It seems that I need to give you the answer. Very well, I'll tell you what you all truly wanted to say. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. All of you would have not even bothered to help him and believe that he was just a hopeless pervert, or believe he will just get over it. Glares at Rias. Isn't that right, Rias? Rias? Nervous? What? I say, eyes narrowed. Simply let them figure it out on their own without any form of supervision, even though you know they deeply need help, just like how you almost allowed me to get killed by that fallen angel even after being a part of your peerage. When I was scared and confused about what the hell was happening to me instead of bringing me in and explaining the situation. You almost had me confused for a stray and gotten me killed a second time. To be honest, how you became a king of your own peerage when you don't even bother helping your own servants when they truly needed you most is beyond me. But I guess after what happened with Kiba, I shouldn't be surprised. You knew that he was going through his own problems such as getting his revenge, but instead of truly helping him come to terms with it, you essentially held it in hopes he would just forget about it. Well, news flash, princess, something that Kiba went through doesn't just go away overnight. Hell, even after completing his revenge, the nightmares of that night will never go away. But you never once took that into consideration. You were no better than Riser, only seeing us as trophies for you flash around with the high-class devils. I could imagine how smug and superior you must have felt when you told everyone you got the security as a member of your peerage. Rias? Serious, I choking on her own words. Kino? Serious. That's enough, Issei. Issei? Raises an eyebrow. At least one of you is actually talking. Ikino. Serious look. Well, it may be true that you may have suffered after being killed by Rainer, but that doesn't change the fact you still continued being a pervert and causing problems to Buchu's reputation. You decided to never let it go and focus on becoming stronger and moving forward. Issei. Serious. Okay. Then please, Akino-senpai, tell me that if Rios really wanted to get out of that marriage engagement, instead of wasting my time doing miscellaneous things like handing out flyers or trying to make a pact with someone, shouldn't she have focused on training me on both my demonic power as well as my sacred gear? Maybe by then I would have been a better help during the raiding game, and who knows, I could have unlocked the transferability sooner, and I could have transferred my power so that Rias could have maybe taken out Riser. Aikino. Speechless, Issei. Eyes narrowed. Besides, you're the last one to lecture me about moving forward. Aikino. Eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? Issei. Serious? Please don't act like I wasn't there and didn't hear what Kokabiel said. You're half-fallen angel and one of the leaders of the Gregory, which makes me curious, since if you were half-fallen angel this entire, then you have the ability to use light, which is extremely harmful to devils. If that was the case, then you alone would have probably taken out most of Riser's peerage by yourself and saved ourselves the trouble. I guess that's the real reason why Riser said you were possibly the only person besides Rios that could stand up to his peerage. So tell me, Akino-senpai, why didn't you use the power you were born with if it meant saving your best friend and master from a loveless marriage? Akino looks away while hugging herself. That's none of your concern. Issei, serious humph. Just as I thought. So next you're afraid of using your own power to the point you were willing to let your own king become a trophy wife for all of eternity, some best friend you are. Eyes narrowed. So how about learning to deal with your own problems before you even start lecturing anyone about getting over theirs? But that being said, both Rias and the rest of her peerage couldn't help but look down as they had no words to respond to Issei's statements. It was then Issei turned his attention to his parents, who still maintained a stoic and neutral expression during his little rant towards his now former mistress and peerage members. If the brown-haired boy was being honest, he was genuinely more furious towards his parents than Rias and her peerage. But of course he needed to say peace towards them, since he will probably never see them again. Issei glares at his parents. Out of everyone in this room, I am the most furious, and most hurt is from you two. Sad, and how could you both do this to me? I'm your son, and just because I was perverted and people started to think of you differently just gave you two the right to just toss me aside and replace me with a girl and a boy you hardly even know over your own flesh and blood. Boru? Serious. Like we said, All you have done is bring shame to the Haida name by not toning down your perverted tendencies. Honestly, your reputation as a pervert has even made its way into my job, and now my coworkers don't even think I should even work there since due to the fact I could be classified as a sexual deviant. Honestly, it saddens me that you are even related to me. At least with you though he can probably bring back honor to the family name. Vicky, serious, and it's not just a guru's job. Even around town people look down, talk about how we let such our son become so perverted. Every time I go out shopping or even step out of the house, I'm always being watched with such judgmental eyes. So having such a kind and innocent girl like Asia is my daughter, then at least everyone will know that I at least have one normal child. Issei growls in anger. So that's what it's about, your fucking image. You care more about how complete strangers see you than your very own son. You're honestly the worst people to be called parents, and I don't think Kiba would ever want to be adopted by people like you. Don't you dare act like you two are fucking saints, because you two are just as perverted as I am with you, Oda-san. Talking about every man's dream about gaining their own harem, in which you got from Ojaizen, but he passed on that dream onto me. Then there's you, Oka-san, who acts like she isn't perverted self when you gave both Rias and Asia naked aprons, for when I came home, you two are serious hypocrites. You know, if you two had sat me down and told me about these problems, you two had, then I would have worked hard to change who I was, because the last I would ever want is for my family to suffer for what I do. But I guess that thought never crossed your mind. Boru eyes narrow. Tell me, you say, would you have changed if we did? I mean, your perversion is like a disease you can never get rid of. Even if you did try to become less perverted, then it would have just come back 10 times stronger. Then at that point you would have just lived and died as a hopeless pervert with nothing to show for. Annoyed, I honestly blame myself for letting father fill your head with all those lies about being the harem king. Maybe if I did something about you back then, maybe you would have been a far better son than what you are now. Issei Ddraig mind? Furious, the sheer arrogance of this asshole. Issei. Enraged, how dare you insult Ojaizen like that? Your own father, he was also a pervert, but he was still a good man, or have you forgotten that? Boru. Serious, I did love my father, but I'm at least wise enough to realize that what he was spouting all these years was complete nonsense, and honestly, I would have thought you realized that too. Honestly, the so-called dream of becoming the harem king is all it will ever be, just a stupid dream, nothing more, nothing less. Issei glares daggers. So just like with me, you just simply lost faith in Ojaizen as well. You know I'm glad he's dead right now, because I wouldn't want him to see the piece of shit son has become, and what he's about to do to his grandson. The same thing Obuken, since no doubt she would go ballistic if she was here right now. Looks away in anger. TSK, I'm done here. I honestly can't believe that my entire I was being raised by such shallow people like you. But just as Issei was about to leave, he was stopped by Rias, which definitely annoyed the brown-haired boy since he was already livid about how his so-called parents truly thought about him. Rias? Serious, Issei, stop. Issei? Annoyed TSK looks back with an annoyed expression. What do you want, Gremory? Rias? Startled, shakes her head. Serious, you can't leave because you still hold my pawn pieces. So until I have them back you cannot leave without my permission. They say, serious, while taking out the small box. Oh, Waves box, you mean these pawn pieces? Rias. Shocked, how the hell did you remove them? That's impossible, since if you forcibly removed them then. I say, serious, I would have been dead. Yes, I would. But thankfully I foresaw this little intervention ahead of time, and I had a little bit of luck on my side. I was able to get rid of them. Rias. Serious, while holding out her hand. Well, in that case return to me and you shall be on your way. Issei. Serious, no. Rias. Shocked, what eyes narrowed. You can't do that. Those are my pawn pieces as well as my property. Issei. Serious. Sorry, Rias, but the way that these pieces are right now, it would be far too dangerous for you to hold them. Hell, you would most likely get yourself killed in the process. But don't worry, I promise to return them to you in time, just not right now. Rias, eyes narrowed. If you leave with those pawn pieces, then I will have no choice to declare you a stray, Issei. You may think you have a little bit of power, not even to go up against an entire pursuit force, and since you are the Sekiryuutei, they no doubt send ultimate class or even Satan class devils to hunt you down. I say. Serious? Oh, really? Then please tell me, Rias. Just what will you tell them, or more specifically, what will tell Sergix or your family? That the reason why I became stray was because you and your peerage were planning on getting rid of me because I was simply too weak to be in your family. Then in that case, please, by all means, you will be completely destroying your family's reputation far more than what I did. Annoyed so much for the Gremory's motto for treating their servants like family, smirks Humph. But hey, at least we now both have something in common. Rias serious. We're both massive disappointments to our families. The red-haired beauty was, of course, at a loss for words, since she deep down Issei was right, because if she reported the real reason why Issei went stray in the first place and the rest of the underworld found out, then her family's reputation could be forever stained upon. Taking Ria's silence as his excuse to leave, Issei left through the front door, not even sparing a glance towards anyone because he had nothing else to say to them. This also symbolized Issei's first step on truly moving forward, and even though he may not be able to get what just happened to him out of his mind for the time being, he was damn sure that he wasn't going to let it completely hold him down. No longer was he Issei Hyoudou, a normal perverted teenage boy and the pawn of Rias Gremory. Now he was just Issei, the current security, as well as the reincarnation of Malzeno, the true dragon god of hope and fate, and his goal now was to become the strongest, to never be weak, ever again, to never be bound to servitude, to never fall into despair again. He will now begin to embody the very concept of hope and show everyone that the chains known as fate can be broken as long as one never gives up. Once Issei was outside, he could see both Office and Zenovia waiting for him, with Zenovia holding the necklace that he told her to get. The blue-haired girl had a deeply concerned expression, since both her and Office heard what transpired inside due to their enhanced hearing. Zenovia, concerned eyes. Are you alright? Issei, serious, I'm fine, looks at necklace. Did you get everything else? Zenovia nods, yes. I put them in my school bag, but I thought you would want this necklace to help you calm down. Issei smiles softly while taking the necklace. Thank you, Zenovia, puts on necklace. I'm truly glad that both me and Irina met you. You truly are a kind and caring person. To be honest, if you would have left with Irina back to the church, I would have ended up destroying the very town me and Irina grew up in, the only small piece left that gave me truly any form of true happiness. Zenovia smiles softly. I may no longer be with the church as well as being a devil, but I still do believe in God's teachings, and his most important teachings is giving others second chances. Smiles. Sadly, I just truly hope Irina will remember that when we finally meet, and I explain to her what happened. But in truth, you should be the one I should be thanking. Just like you, I fell into despair after learning of God's death, and I thought my life had no meaning. Even though Rias brought me into her family, it was you who showed me that's more to live for. That, essentially, just because God was dead didn't mean the world had ended, and that I should live in the world that he sacrificed himself to help preserve to the best of my abilities. Issei couldn't help but smile and be proud of the blue-haired girl's words, and that just like her, she is willing to take that first step into becoming a better version of herself. It was then the brown-haired boy turned his attention towards the black-haired loli to tell her that they could leave to find the sons of the legendary Dark Knight. Issei smiles softly. Okay, Office. We can go now. Office nods. Okay. But that said, Office opened up a portal made out of black snakes, to which all three of them followed through. With now Issei trying to refortify his mind, since he was about to no doubt fight off if they're one of the toughest battles he will ever face in his entire life. Thanks for listening to my video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and comment below your favorite part. Sayonara, see you in the next video.